Oh, hi! Jerry, what video was I making today? Oh, that's right. Alright, so I guess this is sort of a sequel to my video about why you should finish stories. In that video, I talked about how you need to embrace your love for a story. And that means that once you finish it, you need to accept the fact that you'll never be able to experience it for the first time again. But today, I wanted to talk about my problem, which has to do with what happens once I finish a story. You see, when I finally get to that ending of a particular story and I read or hear that final word or see that final name in the credits and I'm enveloped in my thought, I like to think an imaginary cooldown is set on me where I have to wait to start a new story, as if I'd be too OP if I was able to start something else directly afterwards. I think this is actually somewhat typical for a lot of people. You almost go into this grieving period where you have to process everything, but even after that process is done, I still have a hard time starting something new. I get into this state where I recognize the impact the story had on me and I need to discover exactly why it did. I almost feel like I owe it to the story to seek to understand every aspect of it. What was the intention behind this? What part had the biggest impact on me? How can I make a video about this? I want to be able to explain exactly what this means to me because there's this voice in my head saying that my love isn't valid if I don't. And I get confused because I don't know if this is a problem or not. I see a lot of people argue that others have trouble starting new stories because they're afraid of trying new things and they just want to stay in their comfort zone. And while I agree people absolutely go through this, I don't think it's what's happening to me. I know there are so many stories that I would enjoy out there if I started them, but knowing that makes it feel like a race I need to go through. I see all these people jumping from story to story to story, having fun, discussing all the new things they've seen. I swear they gained a stat modifier that reduces their cooldown by 50%. And I want to join them, but I need to understand this one first. There's so many great stories out there and I want to experience them all, but I also want to understand them all. I'm just having to cope with the fact that I won't be able to experience all the stories I know I would fall in love with. And that's really hard for me. It's hard knowing that there are so many stories out there that would have just as much of an impact on me as SAO, VGHS, Scott Pilgrim, Spider-Man, Daredevil, The Witcher, Halo, or Lord of the Rings, but every time I get into this thought of wishing I could just understand these things faster and be able to experience and create more of these stories, I hear this quote of Gandalf saying,
"So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought."
I'm reminded that this isn't a race, and no one is allowed to make it a race for me. My goal is to experience and understand as many stories as I can. It's not to know all of the stories. So what if that means I could have started something new by now? As long as I'm trying to discover and understand something, that's still just as worth the time in my book. I just need to do it my way, and sometimes that means my cooldown bar lasts longer than others. So I guess if I were to try to sum things up, I'd say this. This isn't a problem. This is just how I be. If you're like me and you like to sit and dwell on why you love a story, that's okay. Understand that your love for something is always valid no matter how much you get it. But also know that you are more than entitled to the time it takes for you to seek to understand. Because it's no fun to be watching the new thing with your friend and think, man, I sure would be enjoying this a lot more if I wasn't thinking about this other story I finished weeks ago. If you're in the other camp and your friend is still obsessing about that one show, book, or movie, try to understand he's just doing him things. Make someone smile with it.